Hello, my name is Kenneth Wu, and today I will be talking about the Model View Controller pattern, also known as the MVC pattern. And this pattern first appeared in 1976 alongside the invention of the programming language called Smalltalk. Alright, so first thing we will cover is what exactly is the model, what is the view, what is the controller. So what the model is that it is the program data. It is the objects, data structures in an application. Right, and the view is whatever the user sees. It is the user interface or the graphical user interface, UIs, GUIs. That is the view. And lastly, the controller is the logic within an application. So it is all the programming code that the program puts in to the application, and this controller it dictates what happens in the application. Right. Next, we will look at the model view controller interaction. So let's have an example where we have a button on our user interface where we want to click a button, and it'll go through and search in the database and find a certain piece of data that we want, and then display it onto the user interface. So how does this go through the model view controller? So the first thing that happens is that this action is sent from the view to the controller. So now the controller goes and it processes this action. Okay, so what does this action want me to do? And then it realizes that the action wants it to look into the database for a certain piece of information. So the database would be the model. So the controller goes through and it retrieves this piece of information needed from the database, and then it will outlet it back into the view, and then the view will display this information. And the way the controller and the model interact is not just a one-way thing where it retrieves the data from the model. It also can update the data to the model. Alright, so one thing you can see from this interaction chart is that the controller is always the middleman. So the view and the model, they never directly interact with each other, and if they want to interact with each other, it has to be through the controller. Yeah, all interactions between the view and the model is through the controller. And then the third thing is that the model and the view do not know about each other. So they can't even interact in the first place because they don't know about each other in the first place. And they're not supposed to know about each other. Everything is done through the controller. Alright, and there are several advantages to the MVC patterns. You might say, why do we even follow this pattern? It seems irrelevant, it seems unnecessary, but there is a reason for the separation of components, and the reason is that if one component was to fail, if one component was to break, then the other components wouldn't break. Like, let's take for instance if like a button on the user interface broke. If that button breaks, then luckily, since the components are all separate, the controller wouldn't break, and the model, it wouldn't affect the model in any way possible. And vice versa, if the data was corrupted, or if the controller malfunctioned, there wouldn't be a malfunction in the view and in the model. Alright, and the other advantage to it is that it makes things easier to update. Like an example of that would be if you, for example, Microsoft, they updated their Windows 7 to Windows 8. Let's make our example a little bit simpler. Let's say that the only major change between Windows 7 and Windows 8 is that the GUI is different, and in this case, if we only want to replace the GUI, it's easily done because the components are already all separated into 3 different sections. So we can just easily go into Windows 7, take the the GUI from Windows 7 and then swap it with GUI from Windows 8. We can just easily swap it. And then of course we have to tweak the controller a little bit, but the point is that it makes things easier to update, change, and it's more reusable in that way. Alright, and with that said, thank you for watching and have a nice day.